Cesar the Crowd Pleaser. If you need to pick me up, ladies, we gon' change your demeanor. Cesar the Crowd Pleaser. We gon' do a little dance, we gon' make the naysayers believe us. Hey girl, had a long day, you tired from work. Throw me some dollars and I remove my shirt. You can touch me too, these are the perks. Free yourself, lose your mind and go berserk, and go berserk, and go berserk, and go berserk.
Make way for the bad guy.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crowd Pleaser, the podcast that brings you the inside scoop on what it takes to be a male entertainer in today's age. I'm your host, Cesar the Crowd Pleaser, and this is episode 49, where we're actually going to be taking a trip down memory lane and talking about LaBare the way it was back then, if you will. A little history episode. I'll be just discussing that in a moment. But first, I want to go ahead and take some time to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/crowdpleaser. This is where you can pledge as little as $1 a show to give something back, keep the lights on, and let me know that I'm going down the right path. You get all kinds of neat perks and things like extra content, behind the scenes footage, even print sent out on a monthly basis. So yeah, definitely check it out. Every show, I want to start calling out a special patron and just kind of give them a little bit of personal loving. So this week, it's going to be Laura Bishop. Thank you so much for pledging on Patreon. I really appreciate it. You rock. Next is LaBare Dallas. This is my home office where I operate 5 nights a week, Wednesday to Sunday. You can catch some of the best male entertainers in this side of the Mississippi, if you will. We got guys of all shapes, sizes, and flavors doing shows all night long, so definitely come check it out, as well as being hired out or available for private parties. That's right, you can pick your favorite entertainer at LaBare, and he will come out to your private venue, whether it's a bar, hotel room, home, and perform the same great skits you see as well as another show. So definitely check it out. Last, I want to mention my New Year's Battle of the Sexes Bash. So LaBare is throwing a special New Year's party where I am bringing tons of phenomenal entertainers, both male and female, performing aerial arts, fire performances, choreographed dance numbers, contortionists, all kinds of cool stuff like that. And we're going to go head to head to settle once and for all, probably not once and for all, but anyways, that's the slight disclaimer. Who are the best entertainers in the business? I guess not in the business too, because most of the female ones aren't strippers. But anywho, that's right. Come check it out. You can get tickets online right now. And if not, you can get them at the door. So book your table soon. You want to be left standing for this amazing event. Couples are welcome. Couples are welcome. So definitely bring your significant other so they can check out the show and stuff like that. And you have a good time together. All right. So on to the meat and potatoes of the show. I found several ladies that have been attending LaBare for over 2 decades and decided to do a short 10-15 minute interview with probably actually longer than that, I believe now, with each of them and kind of crop them together to give you an idea of, and me as well, some of it was new for me as well, of what LaBare was back then and how it has stayed the same or changed throughout the years, and some of the stuff that has carried on and how the place has evolved, including the audience and the crowd that come out and see us and things like that. And some good, some bad, but I put it on there for you guys to hopefully get a little bit of insight as well. I mean, it was fun for me doing this, so I hope you enjoy it. I will say that stuff like this is a little different. You saw me do something similar to that recently with the Strippergram show. If this is something you kind of like, a little more post-production type stuff, let me know in the comments. I definitely appreciate the feedback, and it lets me know whether I should continue doing stuff like this or just kind of stick to my regular bringing on a guest on the show and having a discussion or an interview with them. All right, so without further ado, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, so let's start off with what time frame were you going to LaBare and what brought you to LaBare, at least the first time?
Well, the first time I started going was probably in about between 90 and 92, and I was in college, and my cousin and she took me out there for the first time.
Okay. And so did you have some reluctance to going, or was it kind of an easy sell?
Oh no, it was easy. I mean, I was excited to see what was going on and the entertainment, and I mean, they just sold it straight out for me. So I was excited about going out there, seeing what was going on.
Sweet. And was LaBare still kind of a new thing? Was there a lot of hype for it being something new, or was it kind of established by then?
Actually, we started going out to the Arlington one, so it was kind of still new out there. And then we started going to Dallas, and it was kind of settled in out there.
Okay.
The guys all knew pretty much who was coming in and who wasn't.
And so after the first time, obviously you came to check it out and stuff like that. What about it made it to where you and let's say other ladies coming back?
The entertainment. I mean, the guys were really nice. They were really friendly. I mean, they made you feel welcome out there. The dancing was, it was worth coming back for. I mean, the guys didn't make you feel like you were coming out there just to see a strip show. You were coming out there to see entertainment.
All right. And so with that entertainment, was it a lot of dance choreography? Were there themed routines? Were there comedy skits? Like, how was the show kind of orientated? Did everyone have their own kind of style and like it was a variety show, or did people kind of stick to the same recipe, so to speak?
There were a lot of skits back then when I first started going. They were doing Tarzan, they were doing the firemen, but they had, I mean, props and everything. I mean, scenery and all that back then. I mean, they made a big show of it.
Okay. Yeah. So they really went all out with stage production and stuff like that back then?
Yeah, back then they did. The stage production was the biggest part of it.
And was this pace of the show a little bit slower because they had to set up so much, or
Yeah, there was not so much dancing. I mean, it was more like they were putting on a play. Now you're getting entertained by the guys dancing and doing their routines than you are them just showing you props and doing a show. I mean, like a play or something.
yeah? Okay. Sweet. So now let's talk a little bit about the vibe, like because of that and stuff like that. Were women a little more calm back then? Were women a lot more interactive? Were women just losing their minds while they were in there? Like, what was the vibe of the audience during that time frame?
Back then, it was a little more laid back. Um, when I was going it, when I first started going to Arlington, it wasn't, the women didn't get a lot of rowdy and stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, they were laid back watching the show and all that. Now you got a lot of screaming girls. You got a lot of them trying to get up on stage. You got a lot of them trying to get into the action. Back then, you didn't.
Okay. Oh, so it was a little more of a lounge feel kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
there was entertainment, but people were a little more relaxed.
exactly.
Okay, and this was at the Arlington location.
Yeah, Dallas was like that too, but Dallas was more of the dancers interacted with the audience. In Arlington, they didn't. Dallas, you felt more at ease. You felt more like being there with the dancers around.
Hmm.
I felt more comfortable in Dallas than I did in Arlington.
Okay. Huh, interesting. So even with a slightly more hype type, excuse me, type environment, the guys just kind of made it a little more personable for you in Dallas.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Hmm, that's pretty neat. So, what, like, did you see a difference in the audience based on which club you were at as well?
Yeah. In Arlington, there were a lot more older ladies, um, a lot more up in age. Now in Dallas, there was a lot more younger crowd, but with it being where it was at over on Greenville, I can understand that because it was around a lot of the clubs over there too.
Hmm.
And there were just more younger people at the Dallas shows than there were in Arlington.
Okay. All right. Did that change the music the guys played on stage or like the type of themed or pop culture skits that they were doing?
Not really. I mean, the guys had their set routines and they were doing them for whatever age group was in there. I mean, when they had a set routine, that's what they did.
Okay. You saw a little less fluctuation on what the guys were doing?
Yes, not more so than what it is now. I mean, the guys now fluctuate on what they do and they give you a variety of what they're showing you.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that though. Like there's always that argument of, either the guys getting bored or the people that come in more often getting bored of the same routines, but there's always that like back and forth of whether I should change up your routine or do the one that potentially can win over the most money and be the most popular because at the end of the day there's always going to be a new face in the crowd every night regardless.
Right.
Now, let's talk about longevity. How long did the average entertainer or dancer stay back then at the club? Did you see guys stay year after year, or was it still kind of a high turnover rate as it is now, or what did you experience?
No, back there was a longevity of it. I mean, there were more guys that were staying longer and longer than there are now. There's a lot of turnover now. I've noticed that there's a lot of turnover now. Back then, you were seeing the same dancers year after year.
And what do you think? Like, what did that do for you as someone that goes there? Like, obviously establishing friendships with people and things like that, and kind of a comfort thing, as well as why do you think guys are not staying as long as they used to?
I I don't know if it's just the money thing is why they're not staying as long as they used to. Back when I first started going, I mean, it was busier back then. The guys staying longer and longer, the girls and the ladies got used to them being there, and they did build up friendships. I built up friendships with a few of the guys back then. Um, Seeing them week after week felt a lot more comfortable for me. Um, as opposed to now, I go into the club now and I see different faces every time I go in. It's just when you get used to the faces of the guys that are there now opposed to what's coming in, you get used to what you're comfortable with.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it gets homey. It's like your favorite bar to go to. You go there, and you know everyone, or at least half the people there, every time you walk in and stuff like that. And you establish a bond when people know what shows you do, as well as maybe even some of the choreography and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I do. I know some of the routines and I know the choreography for them. And
Oh yeah, I've seen you. I've seen you dance along with the people. So yeah, there's no. It's flattering on all accounts. It's like, well, I guess we're doing something good enough that they wanted to, tag along in it. So I'm down with that. It's better than everyone just sitting on their phones watching. So
yeah,
while we're discussing the routines, what is your favorite routine and by who, or what was correct back then initially?
back then, um, I guess I could say my favorite routine back then was um, who was it? Raphael was one of the dancers back then, and he used to do the construction worker. That was my favorite routine back then. As opposed to now, my favorite routine now, I just saw it Saturday night for the first time. I hadn't seen this dancer do this routine, and I thought it was really awesome. It was you doing the cowboy routine.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I had no idea. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know I'm dance captain, so I have to teach all the guys all the routines. So inherently, I know all the routines. And if someone's not doing it, someone has to do it to kind of keep it in everyone's memory. So I just started
right.
doing it for my set. I didn't realize you hadn't seen it yet. You've seen me do my
No.
cowboy routine, though, correct? The fake ID one or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay. So it was
Yep,
just a
that
new
one.
twist on an old classic then?
Yeah, but actually, my favorite routine of yours is the shower routine.
Yeah, it's a winner. People like me. What can I
I
tell you?
I like the beginning of it more than I like the shower part, though.
Oh, no
Just the
kidding.
look on your face going through it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad the little nuances of it kind of came across then. I really appreciate that. I didn't know that cowboy was one of your favorites though. It is a fun routine to do. So you don't find it weird at all that when I dress up like a cowboy, huh?
No. Oh, no. No, I
Sweet.
think you look good as a cowboy.
Thanks. Yeah, some people it catches them off guard. They're like, it's one thing for me to do it for a skit, and it's another thing for me to do it for my entire set and occasionally side stages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, the What are two of the biggest differences you see? It could be the crowd, it could be the guys, it could be the dynamic of the club from then and now.
Uh, the guys now are a lot younger. I mean, a lot younger. There's a lot of them that look like they're babies. I mean, like they're just out of high school. Back then, the guys all looked like they were in their late 20s and had some experience behind their routines and stuff. But you just see a lot of difference in the age and the guys. Uh,
Now, just to kind of play devil's advocate here, do you think part of that might just be the perception of it because you were younger then as well, or was it really just a young man's game now, and it was a lot more mature gentlemen working there back then? Because I've noticed that for me as I get older, I notice people that are a lot younger a lot more than when I was younger.
yeah, there was a lot more maturity back then than there is now. They seem to be getting younger and younger now
Huh.
than they were
Okay.
back then.
Interesting, interesting, very interesting. I find that pretty cool. Yeah, because to me it makes sense that more younger guys would do this because they're kind of not quite sure what they want to do in life yet. It gives them a chance to start making money but still have some fun, and they're into
Right.
the party scene. So I find it really interesting that at a previous time it was more of a an older man's game. What's another difference that you notice other than the age of guys?
I guess the attitude in the girls that are coming in, there's a lot of them that are coming in acting like now that, it's going to they're going to come in here and these guys are going to think, oh, I want to get with her and they're going to hook up with one of these guys. Back then, that's not what I was seeing from the women. Back then, they were going in for entertainment. They weren't going in for a hookup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that honestly might just be the side effect of all those dating and rapid assessment websites or whatever, Tinder, and I think Bumble is another one or whatnot. But like all those things where people kind of do speed dating online, where everyone's up for grabs at this point, might be a slight side effect of that. Like I totally understand. I don't see what the difference is from then and now, as far as in the show that guys produce, but I do see that, and it always blows my mind away because don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the quality of the guys, but I feel like if you're looking for someone that you might potentially marry in the future, you're probably not going to meet them at a strip club. I mean, just
Right.
saying. And I work at one, but hey, it is what it is. Um,
Yeah, but you're not out there to hook up. You're out there to do your job.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the only way you can look at it. It's a full time career, 100%. It's the only way you're going to succeed at it is if you devote yourself to it. So,
Right. And you are very good at what you do.
well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. All right, so welcome on the show. Real quick, let's get a little point of reference. So, from about what time frame did you ladies start coming to LaBare?
I started in 1983.
Okay, right on. Awesome, awesome. And and you've been coming to LaBare pretty much ever since, correct?
Right.
Okay, cool. Now, occasionally, I'm sure people take long hiatuses and stuff, and then come back and whatnot. So,
Well, yeah, because I did that. I took a 3-year hiatus and then went back.
okay, okay. And when was that?
I don't remember.
Fair enough.
Probably early in 2000s maybe.
Okay, wow. And actually, if you don't, let's touch on that real quick because I won't get too sidetracked. But so, do you remember what the reason was for you to kind of take your hiatus?
Because at the time, Lefty had a boyfriend, and she was spending all her time with him, and so I just didn't have anybody to go out there with, so I quit.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, actually, there's a little giggling behind that. I don't know if there's an inside joke to that or not, but let me ask you something about that. Mm-hmm. Is it one of those things where she didn't approve of the boyfriend?
No, I liked him. He was a great guy, but things just didn't work out for him. So then we said, okay, let's go back to LaBare. So, yes, we went back.
Fair enough. So let's touch on that a little bit, though. So you didn't have anyone to go with. Is that kind of like a standard staple for you, or is it just LaBare that you feel that way? Or what, did you not have a close enough relationship to some of the guys to be okay going by yourself? Like, what was that dynamic? Because I know there's probably a lot of listeners that go through something similar themselves.
No, not really, because I used to go out there all by myself. And then when Lefty turned 18 and she started going with me, it was just, it was just the thing to do.
Yeah, no, it completely understandable. Okay, cool. So let's rewind a little bit. Go back to initially in the early 1980s and stuff when you started going. What was the vibe of the club back then? Like, is there anything that stood out to you that made you want to come back again, and just kind of like your first impressions initially at the club?
It was just the whole experience. It was something different. It was something fun. I mean, the guys have always been great, and so, I mean, that's mainly why I enjoyed going out there.
So there was no place other in Dallas to go to that had that kind of experience?
No, because I'm really not a club person. I did that in my early 20s and kind of got burned out on it. So, yeah.
Okay, right on. And what was the vibe of the women? Like, what kind, were they just losing their minds, or was it a safe place for them? Was it a place to be comfortable? Was it a lot of less repeat people and more, day one people? Like, what kind of vibe did the women have overall in the audience back then?
It was really good, kind of crazy, because that's when they were back on Lovers in Greenville, and that club was so small. It was like wall-to-wall women in there. But it was good. It was a good vibe. Everybody seemed to be having a good time, enjoying themselves.
And so, last question on that, what about it kind of made it to where you wanted to come back again and again?
Mainly the guys, because I got to know a lot of the guys, and they're just really down-to-earth, nice guys, and it just made me want to keep going back.
Okay, cool. So you just kind of established a lot of friendships, and it kind of had that Cheers effect, so to speak, where you went to a place where everyone knew your name and you felt comfortable there?
Right.
Excellent. Yeah, that's actually, believe it or not, our number one returning factor. A lot of people go for the show initially. Actually, speaking of that, yeah, so what drew you to LaBare the first time? Was it a friend? Was it you just heard all the hype and excitement about it? Did you come across it on your own? Like, what took you to LaBare the first time?
Oh, my friends, to celebrate my divorce, they took me out there.
Okay, yeah, easy enough. And just to go a little deeper into that, do you know the friend whose idea it was has been there before, or they just figured it'd be a good idea?
They just figured it would be something for me to do, because they had always invited me to go before, but my ex-husband wouldn't let me go. So when I got divorced, they said, hey, it's party time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. It ends up there being a certain level of potential behind it and stuff like that. Like, I totally understand. And that's one of the reasons actually why we did the reality show and this podcast, so people can kind of see the other side to it, not be so reserved about it. So fast forward, Letty, about what time did you start coming to LaBare?
It was about 97.
Okay.
All 97, 98.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And listening in now to your mom and stuff, do you feel like it was a lot of the same stuff when you started going, or did you have a slightly different experience as far as the women or maybe the club or the guys and stuff like that?
No, it was about the same. Because when I started going, they were there on Lovers in Greenville, so it was about the same vibe.
Gotcha. Okay, and same thing. You instantly, obviously, you started to make connections with the guys and stuff like that, and just it became more and more comfortable every time you went.
Right. Yeah. You just develop like friendships, really good friendships with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me touch on this a little bit because I do feel like the crowds have evolved over the years. Granted, I've only been dancing for coming up on 7 years now, but even I've noticed a change. So, what do you ladies see a difference as far as the audience goes? Because some of our other ladies that have been willing to interview for this I've seen it too, where the women are, I hate to say younger, because I really don't feel like they are. I think it's still a full spectrum of age that comes to the club, but you see women be a little more like dramatic about things, or a little more possessive, or a little more like, let me show the world how much fun I'm having here versus actually experiencing it. Have you ladies experienced that change as well over the more recent years, like let's say the last decade? I mean, it's okay to say no. If you haven't, it's perfectly all right.
I don't. No, not really. I don't think so. I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's perfectly all right. Like, there's no issues there. If you ladies normally have a pretty good judge of character. You keep to yourselves sometimes and interact with people that I think are fine. So you could undoubtedly be avoiding the craziness. I know you and I, we've joked around a couple of times of like, hey, all right, time to weather the storm and make my way up to main stage for, whoever it is that you like, with the crowd of the sea of women there and stuff like that versus the slower nights. So,
yeah.
All right, so if we can get a little bit personal, but not too personal, what were or are your favorite routines that you've seen throughout the years? And actually, it's actually great, since you ladies have been coming so long, you've had the chance to see the more club routines be done by several people and kind of make a mark. So yeah, if and it could be different ones. What is your favorite routine, and by who? And then also, what has been your like the best routine you've seen?
Well, that's easy. I mean, it's your routine, the shower routine.
Really? No kidding. Like, I'm a little surprised, because you've probably seen, 15 guys do shower roughly? Maybe not. I don't exactly know when Angela started doing shower. I don't think anyone did it once he took it over.
Yeah, nobody did it before him, but you know,
really? So he was the first one to do it?
As far as I know, I never saw anybody do that routine but him.
Oh, okay. No, I totally believe you. Like, I didn't know who originated it in the club. I did hear that the first time he did it, he was actually in like a trough on stage, like a giant tub instead of the shower. Is that correct?
I don't remember him being in the tub. I just remember they put the shower in, and that he started doing it then. But
okay, no, I believe, like I said, I was a little pretentious about that when I heard that quote unquote rumor that's when it started, was he had actually a trough on stage. Maybe someone was just messing around for a strip off or something like that. Well, sweet, that's awesome. And so hands down, that is the best routine you've seen in all the years you've been coming to LaBare.
yeah, I would say so. Because, I mean, the thing about you is that you're so creative, and all your routines are all different, and, it's not the same thing over and over again. So that's what I like about your routines and watching you.
Oh, well, thank you. But all right. So this I do have to inquire, because we recently, and I say recently, it's probably been about a year and a half ago now, we came across an old stash of VHS tapes where they recorded all the guys performing at Lovers in Greenville. And these guys would throw down. Like, me, Jason, and like two other guys were sitting there as Alex was telling us about all the entertainers and like taking notes, because these guys were throwing down some serious entertainment value. So, like, were there some of the people that you remember being friends with that were just as creative back then? Because initially, I mean, they were innovating the industry, so to speak. Like, there was nothing to kind of follow. There wasn't a recipe. So people were just doing things on their own to invent stuff and try to upgrade their show. Do you remember any of that?
I remember one routine that was done by Loverboy, and it was the Michael Jackson routine, which was really good. And I'm trying to think of the song, and I can't think of it. But it's like the routine where Michael Jackson in the video, he's like leaning over. They're all dressed like gangsters.
Oh, Smooth Criminal.
Smooth Criminal. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal.
That was a really good routine.
So there really wasn't anyone that just was constantly coming up with new shows and making shows for other people and stuff like that. I know Alex has mentioned Christopher Michaels, I think, was the guy that was making a lot of the routines to include the cop routine and stuff like that. And I think that was probably within the last 15 years. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. All right, hold on. Give me the details. All right, so talk to me about him.
No, we used to be his tippers, but yeah, he was always doing different routines. Yeah.
No, there's don't get me wrong. I meant nothing bad about, it's perfect. All right. In fact, it gives me. I like the fact that when people are creative and give the extra effort into the job, that they end up getting rewarded by it. And the fact that you ladies showed him appreciation and became friends with him, says a lot. Because there's guys that are innovative, especially with our newer guys, when they try to come up with a show and, they don't, it might be a wicked show, but women don't kind of show them the proper appreciation for it. It's really discouraging for them. And I mean, it's happened to me. My robot routine, my samurai routine, those have kind of fallen by the wayside because they weren't very popular. And, luckily I'm persistent, so I continue to adjust things and try to morph things and come up with things that people like. But so that's great. No, please, by all means. So tell me a little bit about his style and charisma and what he brought to the stage, if you ladies don't mind.
Well, he was a really good dancer, and his routines were, he had like a routine where he'd come dressed out, like a cheerleader, and then he had his Richard Simmons routine.
Oh, really? That's freaking epic.
Yeah, with a big puffy wig. Yeah, and then he'd take off the wig and he had like a bald top on, and he'd turn to his Sinead O'Connor routine. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah, he did all that. Yeah. And the cheerleader routine, he come out the song Mickey, yeah.
Oh, that is, I bet women lost their minds, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, all right, let's touch on that a little bit more, because the comedy routines have always been a point of discussion for us, because obviously women come in there, they want to see sexy, good-looking men doing things, and guys kind of always focus on sex appeal. So that's why things like the shower and the bed are so popular. But I feel like, case in point, when I do doctor, I normally do doctor as my first routine, because I feel like when the women they're still kind of sober, they're still not comfortable, that kind of helps essentially break the ice and kind of let them know, hey, look, it's not as strict and it's not as overbearing as you think it is. And it's made me money sometimes. I have the one where I sit the girl on stage with me. I go through Superman, Batman, Driving Miss Daisy, all those things. And there's Carlos that you ladies have seen. So both two-part question. One part is, how do you two feel about the more comedy routines in general? And then how do you feel the crowds as a whole responded to them? Because obviously I'm sure every guy didn't do a comedy routine back then. But how do you feel like the crowds back then, both in the 80s and the 90s, and maybe even early 2000s, responded to those routines then?
I like the comedy. I mean, I think they're funny, but then again, I like to laugh. Yeah, so do I. So seeing, like a comedy skit, I think it's funny.
Now, just to play devil's advocate, do you think those routines were funny and enjoyable because you knew the guys on a more personal level at that point, or do you feel like if it was if it was your first time in the club and you saw it, you still would have enjoyed them just as much?
I think I would have enjoyed it just. Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, because like you said, we like to laugh, have a good time, So
yeah, and like I said, it was more about me just playing devil's advocate. Like I totally think that it's fine either way. So that's what you ladies think. What was your opinion, or what do you feel like the crowd as a whole, time after time, seeing those routines? How did they respond to them?
There's laughter. Yeah. They did. The women were laughing and cheering. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't so much a bunch of women looking up at stage and being like, "What? Did we go to a comedy club or a strip club?"
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. Are there any other routines throughout the years that kind of stuck out to you, or you just always remembered and loved when someone did it?
I would say Angelo's when he used to do his fire routine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the spinning the fire baton and stuff like that. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask, were you ladies there at any of the nights that he potentially had an accident with them?
Yes, I was there.
Oh, all right. Give us the details on it then, because I was never.
Is that one? Which one are you talking about? Like the night he let it go and it went out of the.
Yeah, yep, that's the one. Definitely give us a scoop on that.
We were there.
It's actually kind of funny because that is one of the reasons why I won't do my fire staff at LaBare. I've tried practicing a couple of times on the slower nights when there's nobody there, and even if I'm spinning it slow, the inertia of the staff causes it to spin off stage if I drop it at all, and I just don't want to take that chance. Like, that's exactly why I don't do it.
Yeah. Right. Well, luckily the night he did it, nobody got hurt or anything. It just went like flying off the stage and the girls cleared out of the way. But yeah.
Oh man, that's insane. What was it? Was it a busy night? I know you said it wasn't super crowded, but oh man, that's crazy.
No, it was busy that night because there was a lot of girls around the stage. Yeah.
Oh man, did he just calmly go smile, pick it up, and go back to what he was doing, or what happened?
Yes, and he apologized. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. A couple of girls screamed out, but yeah."
Yeah, I believe it. It's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. And the thing is that sometimes it's not even being nervous. It's just the excitement. Like I found myself doing my fire poi. If the crowd is rocking and just throwing back so much energy at me, I naturally start to speed up my spin, which throws off my flow because I get used to a certain rhythm. And so,
right.
Yeah, it totally happens. Like sometimes it's not even a nerves thing. It's just an accident where he probably could have easily had just a rocking stage, so he was spinning faster than he normally did, and it takes one missed finger or one missed handhold for it to just go flying. And like I said, that's why I won't do my fire whip or a fire whip at the club. I don't own one because I'm afraid if I owned one, I'd try to bring it to the club. So I don't own a fire whip or either of my fire staffs. I've kind of played around my dragon staff a little bit because it's more of rolling it than it is actually spinning it. And it has prongs on it, so if it falls to the ground, it kind of really doesn't go too far. So that one I'm a little more inclined to, but yeah, it's oh man, I heard about that once or twice, and I was just like, oh man, that would have just
yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to finish performing. I mean, I probably would have, but I would want to end my set as soon as possible and just go to the back and chill out, be like, I almost lit a girl's hair on fire. I mean, especially when this happened, we're still in Texas, so Texas big hair is a thing, with a whole bottle of hairspray. So I'm
that's true.
I mean, you can only play it off these women so hot and bothered they lit their hair on fire. It was crazy. All right, so moving right along. Let's do, and this is completely your opinion, there's no wrong answer, but what are some of the things that you've seen, let's say 1 and 1. Let me know what's one thing that you have seen that has carried on throughout the years. It could be anything, the persona of the guys, the way the club feels, the kinds of routines, the music, anything you want that has persisted through time, the test of time from when you ladies first started coming to the club till now, and something that has changed, like something that is just night and day difference from back then to now?
I guess the crowd has changed because it's not as crowded as it used to be. But I think, too, back then, that club on Lovers, LaBare on Lovers, it was smaller, so that could have been, you know. It was always jam-packed. I mean, it was like literally, you know, you were elbow to elbow with people.
Yeah, and that is a thing, very much so. When I've performed in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, those clubs, there's 100 women in there, and the place is absolutely smashed packed, you know, so.
Right.
Versus our club, we can easily get to 350, maybe 400 before you start to feel the squeeze.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll help you ladies out. I know something that has changed is long hair. I know when I was watching the videos, like it seemed like every single dude in that place had long hair.
I had long hair, and the 80s rockers look. Yeah.
And then
when they wore the white boots.
See, so the white boots were a thing. Yeah. Okay, because it's kind of funny because in The Hitchhiker that Brandon does, you know, the guy's like, you know, standing out there with his knee-high tall white boots. And we always crack that joke, but, you know, like I didn't realize it was a thing where everyone had literally white knee-high boots.
Yeah, all the guys had white boots with the bandanas like tied around them. Yeah, and of course they wore T-backs, so you know you could see everything. But
okay, all right, let's dive a little deeper into that. How do you feel about that change as far as going from, you know, a T-back or a thong to, you know, a lot more coverage with the boy short type underwear?
I personally like the boy short. Yeah, I do too. It's more to the imagination. Yeah, it does. It leads more to the imagination than seeing it all. Right.
Cool. I'm okay with that because I actually prefer that as well. Not only just even being a dancer, like it gives me more support and moving around a lot more. I wouldn't want my cheeks flapping in the wind, so that's just me.
Right.
It even took me a little while because of the full back that I wear for shower. It took me a little while to get used to wearing that on stage. Now I'm not too bad about it because I've been wearing it for so long. But the first like month or two that I was wearing it, I was like, I really feel like I need more fabric right now. What was the public opinion on that change? Like, did that happen kind of overnight, or was it a gradual thing? Like maybe one or two guys started to wear, you know, more full coverage underwear, and then slowly other people, or was it one of those things like there was a rule from higher up that was like, hey, no more teabags?
I think it became like just an overnight thing, and I had asked one of the guys one time what had happened, and I can't even remember who I asked, but they told me it was Dallas City ordinance that they had to cover up. So
yeah, I could believe that. I can 100% believe that. Because it goes from city to city. It's much like how you can't smoke in certain parts of Dallas, but you can in Fort Worth or Addison and et cetera and stuff like that. And I've said it several times on the show, but we're actually not a strip club. If legally identifying us like what we're classified under as a business, we're not a strip club. So our rules are a little more strict than you would expect because of that. Which honestly I think is fine. Like we'll get people from out of town that want us to go full nude or like do XYZ, and they're a little disappointed. But I think for the most part, much like how you ladies just said, I think people like us to be a little more on the conservative side, and it creates a more safer environment to have some fun without feeling like you're going too far off the cuff or too far off the deep end.
Right. Yeah.
And that being said, one of our biggest compliments is that a lot of women find us to be a safe place to go out because they know they're not going to a place where a bunch of guys are going to hit on them and try to take them home. They know that they're kind of going to be surrounded by women that are similarly there for the same reason, just to have a good time, feel appreciated, and enjoy their evening. And so has that been something that's kind of always been the place or the feeling in the environment since from when you ladies began to now?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, because I mean, it's nice to actually go and, like you said, not have guys hitting on you all the time, and then I think nowadays, like going to dance clubs and stuff, I think guys are just like too aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is a safe place. Yeah, just to feel comfortable and have a good time. Right, just to have fun.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, I know there's probably some people listening. They're like, "Well, I would love to get hit on by a guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." But the thing is that it's all in context. Like, if you're going out with a friend you see all the time, and you're like, "Hey, let's go out and meet people," that's different. But when you're trying to catch up with someone you haven't seen in a while, and every 5 minutes in the middle of a conversation, someone comes up and tries to talk to you, and this and that, and you want to be polite, so you're not going to shoo them off. It ends up being more of an annoyance and stuff like that. So I think it all comes into context. And the fact that you kind of know what you're getting into when you go to a place says a lot. And even from first-timers, when they don't know, they're even if they're not surprised by the show we do, which most of them are, but let's say Magic Mike kind of influenced so many people, and they come out and they realize, hey, this, they end up being surprised at how good of an environment it is versus what they may or may not expect. So yeah, that's cool. I'm really glad we've been able to kind of maintain that throughout all the years and kind of keep up the tradition.
Okay, so the very first time I went into LaBare was probably 2005. So around 2005, I came in for the first time. A group of friends and myself were out to dinner, and we got in the car after dinner and heard an advertisement on the radio for LaBare Dallas, and we decided, what the heck, let's do it. And we drove down on a Sunday night, and that was our first time coming in.
No kidding, Sunday night.
Yeah.
How busy was it?
It was pretty dead, there was probably maybe 10 girls in the club, and we walked in, and it was fairly early too. I think it was only 9 or 9:30. We had just finished up dinner, and it was kind of me and my closest girlfriend were both going through breakups, so it was like, let's just do this. Let's get out here and see what this is about. So
Hey, sometimes you got to be brave and bold. So let me ask you was that radio advertisement the first time you ladies have heard of LaBare, or did you kind of already hear it through whispers and like back talk and stuff prior to, and just never had a reason to go?
I think that was probably like the first time we had really like heard about it. I may have heard like a radio commercial or two before, but nothing, nothing substantial. Back then all we had was MySpace, and people just didn't advertise stuff or post photos, and I had never heard of anyone going or anything. So that was my first real advertisement or impression.
Okay. And so you went on a slow night, but what about it made you ladies want to come back?
So we were all each individually kind of going through different things. My one friend had just left her husband, who was in the military, who was having an affair overseas, and she was pregnant. So she came for fun, but then she kind of didn't come back for a long time. But then my other friend that was with me, and I was going through a very tumultuous breakup, ending of an engagement. And so there was a dancer. So I walked in and I saw this dancer, and I thought, wow, he's really good looking. And then he like disappeared for, you guys disappear when you have sets and stuff. But that was my first time there. So I was like, he disappeared. I don't know where he went. So he came back, and we had got to talking a little bit, and like really enjoyed each other's company. And so he's like, you should definitely come back. And I was like, we'll see. I was still soaking it all in, and still kind of going through a very, I was in a really bad spot. Abusive relationship that I left. So I was very untrusting of guys, but,
you weren't quite sure how to interpret your feelings at the time.
Yeah, I was kind of overwhelmed and like, okay, this guy's talking to me, and, he probably just wants all my money. And then it was funny because he said, okay, well, I'm going to go on stage and be sure to come see me on stage. And I said, okay. And then as soon as he walked away, another guy walked right up to me, and that guy was like, just started talking to me. And I hadn't even seen him. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, you're really attractive. And so him and I, we started talking, and he was really nice, and he had gotten my phone number. And so he was kind of, on me. So from there, it was like, okay, we had a good night. We talked to a few guys. And one of my girlfriends, my third girlfriend that was with me, she loved Rico. That's back when Rico was still there. So she started talking to him and loved him. So she was like, I want to go back to see Rico. And I was kind of like on the fence. Maybe we come back, maybe, maybe not. And then the dancer that had gotten my number was texting me, come back in, come in on Wednesday, come see, come see us. So I said, maybe I'll be able to come back in on Thursday or Friday, work permitting. Because that's when I used to work nights then too. So, but obviously we did come back. So
do you feel like was there more interaction with the crowd as far as like more supposed to like the guys essentially working the floor back then than you see nowadays? Or was that just kind of the fact that you all capitalized on it being slow?
I think that, over the years, so, I've been in and out, and I've gotten married and been divorced and had years where I didn't come and years where I did. And then obviously came back to work there. And so I would say that definitely throughout the, 12 or so years now that I've been coming and going, I would say the crowd interaction was a lot different. But I feel like what I feel most that's different now is the energy with the dancers. I feel like the energy used to come together so well with the dancers, and it was such a natural thing, and everybody was having fun, and you could tell for the most part that everybody liked each other and everybody was having a good time, and they wanted you to have a good time too. So I feel like there was a lot more accessibility. I feel like I see a lot now. Dancers will be on a stage and they'll just immediately go back to the locker room and until their next set. And so, especially on slow nights, and I feel like you're missing out on this vulnerable crowd that's not quite sure they're ready, that they want to approach you on a stage. I still don't like coming to stages. I've been going for 12 years and I still don't I'm like, I have to really like you to come up to a stage and say hi to you. So
oh, wow. Okay.
I still I don't know why the stages have always made me feel uneasy. They just haven't. So it was funny because the majority of the time I feel like I talked and spent with dancers is more at the bar. So that's when, I had brought up to Alex, and part of my campaign is, when guys finish their stages, it wouldn't be such a bad idea if they just hung out at the bar for 5 minutes or so, if they don't have anything they immediately need to do, and make them a little bit more approachable. I feel like in interviewing all the girls I interviewed, I definitely feel like there was a big response with that, where they were like, the first few times I came in, I did feel it was harder to approach the guys. And I feel like it's harder to approach guys now than it was back then. And I don't know if that's an energy difference or a me difference. But I do feel like the overall energy has dramatically changed in the past, 5 to 7 years, probably.
So you're speaking about energy and stuff like that. How was the vibe of both the club, like you said, the guys wanted to make all the women happy, but how was the vibe of the audience, the women that were attending the show and stuff like that? What was your what was your pulse on the heartbeat of the club, so to speak?
I feel like everything just flowed and carried over. Everyone was having fun, and so then the women were having fun, and the crowds were more energetic, and it was a lot lighter. You walk in and it would be so light, and it would be having fun, and you would want to be a part of the fun. I feel like that's especially when I look at dancers like Kyle. I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to meet him, but when it was Kyle and Angelo and some of these guys that just really they were weren't afraid to be goofy. I feel like some of the goofy stuff has been cut out along the way. I know it's still here and there. Occasionally you'll see a goofy skit, but there was the several different group routines a night, like the freaks of the industry and people, several different times a night where they were goofy and people just thought it was hilarious and wanted to be around it and a part of it. And I feel like a lot of girls were enveloped by that energy. Upon leaving my breakup, I was looking for distractions and friendships. And I think that's another giant part of LaBare that's underrated is people shouldn't be afraid to go in by themselves, because there's so many times that girls who are lonely, who have come out of breakups or toxic relationships where they were isolated, and they're in there and they meet a friend. And I've picked up all these little friends along the way that I'm just like, I have a friend who I was her maid of honor in her wedding, and I'm the godmother to her daughter. And we met because the fifth or so time I came into LaBare, she's sitting alone at the table next to me. And I looked at my friend next to me. I said, should we invite her to sit with us? She's just sitting there by herself. She looks kind of sad. And she had been stood up by her friend to meet up there. And so we invited her to sit with her. And then, so we had this great friendship. So it was like, I started, upon exiting a toxic relationship, I started meeting new people and coming out more. And I felt like LaBare was kind of a safe place for where I was at that point in time, because I was hanging out with friends and making friends with some of the guys, and just it was a nice little escape from all the heavy things I had going on in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a common occurrence where people, one of the biggest compliments we get as establishments is that we're a safe place, and that's huge. I think it makes a world of difference both back then and now. So we could dive into a little more personal question. When, the first couple of years you were coming, what was your favorite routine back then? And if so, by who?
Ooh, my favorite routine would have probably been, I think Anthony's routine, or the one with the headdress and the fire and all that. And I that was one of my favorite ones, as far as like when you're watching, you're like, wow, there's fire, there's thing going on, and then to now, I feel that that's translated into a lot of the routines you do, when you incorporate these acts with fire and exciting new elements, and it's things that people don't see, because when we're in this world of like Facebook and everything's on the internet, and you get all these little videos of traveling Magic Mike and the Thunder from Down Under, and you see these kind of cookie cutter routines that, okay, we're dancing Genuine Pony, it's cute. But I think I think the routines, some of them were a little more outside of the box back then, and it was fun. I loved the one Kyle did, which was the Carlos routine.
Oh yeah, the comedy skit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like it's good to have the super sexy ones, but it's also so good to have those comedy ones. I feel like y'all don't have as many of those anymore. And I feel like that's so important, because you're kind of softening the edges for a person who may be like, oh wow, this super sexy guy did this super impressive routine, and I do not want to go near that stage and look at all the beautiful girls that are standing right there in front of them. And then, you have a comedy skit and you're laughing and you're like, this guy's hilarious, he's funny, he's hot, I'm gonna go up to him, and I'm a little more comfortable approaching him.
Yeah, it's a good way to break the ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's one of the reasons why I like having one or two or maybe even three comedy skits in your arsenal. I mean, every guy should have at least one for that reason exactly. Like, you never know who you're going to come across and what their attitude is. And sometimes you might just inadvertently intimidate the heck out of them, so you have to kind of pick and choose your battle, so to speak, and be able to appeal to what might make that connection. So you did touch on it a little bit as far as the age of smartphones and social media and everything kind of being blasted. How do you feel that has changed the environment or the industry from when you first started coming to now?
I feel like it's changed it dramatically, and I feel like the women have changed dramatically. So in 2005, I'm walking in at, I was 18 or 19, and I'm walking into the club for the first time, and I have a flip phone that can barely take decent pictures, and you can't get on MySpace or Facebook. There are no dating apps. There are no quick responses. You don't talk to people for days at a time. So it's like, I feel like we could go in and really like put our phones in our back pockets and enjoy ourselves and let loose. And it was this environment, you feel safe, you have fun, you know, it was so interactive, and you weren't worried about anything else around you. And then, you know, the progression through the years, especially, you know, the 18 and 19-year-olds that come in now, they have a billion apps on their phone, and they see videos every day, and they're not impressed, and they, you know, are focused on their phones, and they, you know, I think everyone's kind of jaded because of all these dating apps where, you know, you can meet a hot guy and go have dinner with him, but he burns you the next day. And so I don't think the shock value is the same, because back then, you know, it was like you could go to a bar and you get your mixed crowd, and you may run into a couple attractive guys, but, you know, walking to LaBare, it was like, wow, there's these super attractive guys, and most of them were super down to earth and willing to talk to you and bring you in on the fun. And I can't count how many times my butt got dragged up on stage, and it was just fun and fun memories, and nobody was worried about taking pictures or doing anything, and everything stayed where it is. And I feel like in turn of that, that's also something that makes a dancer more relaxed, is not having to worry about that other side of it. Because, you know, when I was in a few weeks ago, and I was taking some videos and pictures, and I looked to the left of me, and there's a dancer giving a lap dance to a girl, and 4 of her friends are all around the dancer, all 4 of them taking a video of the lap dance. And I'm like, wow, what a way to just drag the entire experience away, because there is something that's so unique and cool. And I've told my girlfriends who haven't ever been, I'm like, you gotta go, you gotta get a lap dance, find somebody you like, get a lap dance, and just try it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a really cool experience, and it's something totally different. And people are like, oh, well, I'm happy with my boyfriend. I'm like, you can be happy with your boyfriend and still enjoy an awesome lap dance. Like,
yeah, I always tell people that they're going to thank us later, because we're just a warm up. We're going to do the hard work, and they're going to reap the rewards later.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's, you know, I feel like in, you know, that turn of saying, you know, there's, you know, people can review you in a second online. If you had a bad night and you happen to just walk past the girl and not acknowledge her and not even realize it, I feel like the moods are definitely different, and the environment as a whole is different. And that's partially to, you know, I feel like there are some dancers that are a little more catty than what you used to see. It's not everyone together having a great time. It's like people do their own thing in their own way, and then they're done. And it's so different from just the togetherness. I'm struggling to verbalize that, but it's definitely, I think, you know, back then people had the true ability to free their mind and escape from their world, and I feel like now it's harder for dancers to pull people out of their world, because their world is their phone.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's actually kind of funny. One of the earlier interviews, we were talking about how they see a lot more women coming into the club looking for that, you know, kind of one night stand or even long-term boyfriend. And they were saying, you know, when they were first coming, their first 10 years coming to the club, that was not a thing. Like, people were just going to hang out with their friends and having a good time. And there were a lot more solid friendships in the club because of that. And I thought part of that was just the fact that, like you said, online dating, like you're able to open up your phone and just find people that you can hook up with or connect with right away. So it kind of leaves it to the point where like you have access to everyone you come across, when that isn't necessarily the case.
It's an instant gratification world where I feel like y'all really get the short end of the stick, because I feel like males are able to disassociate. And so they walk into a gentleman's club and they're like, we're here to have fun. We're going to do our thing. We're going to enjoy the ladies. And I feel like women are like, we're in this great time of women empowerment and, feminism and all these things going on. But on the flip side of that, I feel like girls have lost the ability to let themselves go for an evening and just, wind down. You don't, I think they're missing out on the novelty and the point of the club. The point of the club is not to come in and have a one night stand with a hot dancer and for him to be your trophy. And, it's not for you to, it is for you to feel better about yourself, and it will make you feel better about yourself, but it's allowing yourself to get to that point, which I feel like so many girls, they don't allow themselves to let go and relax and enjoy the people around them.
Yeah. Sweet. That was well put. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like people in general, just in life overall, have to stop living life through their phones or broadcasting what they're doing to everyone else and just enjoying it for what the experience that it is.
Definitely. I feel like, especially recent events, losing Jessica and stuff like that. I've definitely cut down. I monitor my screen time, and I'm like being sure I'm in the moment with the people around me. But there's a whole generation, anyone my age or older, or maybe within 3 to 4 years of my age, we can remember a time when everything wasn't at a touch. But now what used to be the key demographic of a club is, young women probably between 19 and 24. Those girls have never lived in an age where everything wasn't at the touch of a button. So I don't even know that they know how to, because they've never lived a life like that. So how to tap into that's something that I'm still continually working on to crack.
I started going in about 1994, and the very first time I went, the bartender was a real good friend of mine, and he invited me, and we went. And then I was real shy at the time, so I didn't talk to a whole lot of people, so I didn't go a whole lot then. And then I went back for my bachelorette party, and that's when I started going like consistently.
Okay, so your first impression was a friend drug you out there, so to speak, but it was good enough that you wanted to come back for your bachelorette party?
Yes.
Sweet. And so let's talk about that a little bit. What it kind of comes off with this. So what was the vibe of the club at the time, and what about it made you want to come back again and again?
At that time, the vibe of the club was really like, it was real sociable. Like everybody wanted to be your friend. Like the guys would come out and just visit and talk and walk around, and so it made you feel, even if you didn't feel comfortable, you got comfortable if you came back over and over again. And that's what made me come back, is I got to know the guys. They were my friends. That we were actually friends. We weren't just, a guy I saw on stage.
Okay. And were so like were the guys able to interact a little more, or was it similar to the kind of level of interaction that we get now, as far as guys staying on side stages and really not working the floor and stuff like that?
No, it was a lot more. Like when they weren't when they weren't on a stage, they were out walking around. They might come sit down at your table. They might come just visit with you. I mean, like now that everyone will stop by and just like say hi or whatever. But no, they would sit down and like have actual conversation. And then if it was their turn to get on stage, then they'd go do their thing. But it was more interaction than it is now.
And do you remember more or less when that might have changed?
Um, it changed. I noticed it changed when the building moved because when we first went, of course, they were over on Lovers, and when it moved over and when different people took over, it changed.
Okay. And did a lot of the guys stay for that crossover, or did you see the roster kind of change as well?
Um, some of it changed, and not a whole lot. It went for a while, it was the same, and then after a little while, it changed. And I don't remember at what time it really changed. The roster changed a whole lot, but for a while it stayed the same, and those same guys were interactive, but the new guys that came in weren't as interactive as the older guys.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about how the stages were and stuff like that. So when you first started going there, did the guys how were the routines on stage? Were they doing multiple guy dance numbers? Were they a little more themed? Were they a little more interactive? Were they the productions that you see now? Like how were the shows back then?
Um, they were a lot of themes, and there were a lot of multi dancer acts, but and the guys used the girls a lot. I know you have to pay to get on stage and everything, but like they used the girls a lot more, even if they didn't pay. It was just more interactive with the girls, and of course back then you could sit around the stage, so they really used the girls that sat around the stage, and so they used them for more of their acts. And a lot of the same acts they still do, but some of them they've dropped out.
Was it kind of like those pop culture ones, like the things that were popular at the time?
Yeah, it was like the Top Gun and there was a cowboy act, and there was trying to remember what else there was. There was the Take Your Hat Off. There was all the the ones that are real popular, but then every once in a while somebody would have something new they would throw in there.
And do you feel like women reacted differently to different kinds of acts, and that's why some have stayed around and some have kind of fallen by the wayside? Or do you think it's just times have changed, or what?
I think people get tired of doing them sometimes, and I think the girls get tired of, like, the girls that come out there all the time. They get tired of seeing the same act over and over again. So it kind of helps if you change it up. But then too, there's acts that you really like. Like, you don't mind if you see it all the time because you like that act.
Yeah, and then obviously for the guys, they have to kind of decide on that thing where do they want to do their best routine for the new crowd every night, because there are always going to be fresh faces in the crowd every night, or if you're going to change it up for that reason. So one, you don't get bored, but as well as the women that are coming out, they don't get bored themselves. So it's kind of a back and forth thing.
Right.
So we had the release of the movies and stuff like that, and obviously this has happened more recently. That kind of moved the industry into the spotlight and a little more mainstream. That How do you feel the popularity of LaBare was when you first started going? Was it still kind of tabooish? Was everyone down to go? Was it exciting because it was a new thing?
Well, when I first started going, it was exciting because it was a new thing, and I'd never been before. But it was popular. Like, I mean, you would go in there on like when you go now, like on a Friday night, it's 10 o'clock before it even starts getting busy, and that's if it does. But like back then, it was like on the nights when they have special nights, when y'all do special shows,
Hmm.
as crowded as it is in there then, it was that crowded every night in there then. It was packed every night in there at that time, except for maybe like on Wednesdays and Thursdays. But on Fridays and Saturday nights, it was wall to wall people.
No kidding. So line all the
Yeah.
way around.
Yes. I mean, all the time.
That's
That's why it
crazy.
was good. That's why it was good if you could sit like around the stage. And that's why, like me, I'm used to getting there early, and I like to sit close because I'm used to that, because back then, if you weren't sitting close or you didn't get there early, you were going to see.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, actually. I've seen that happen, like you said, on our event nights and stuff like that. We'll have a packed place where it's, standing room only. But it's crazy to think that, it was like that. Don't get me wrong. We've had our stints nowadays where it'll be packed, but like that every single night is absolutely insane.
Right.
And
I
was it,
know.
and do you
I,
think it was just the hype of it
I
being a new thing, or did people go and they enjoyed it and they kind of were able to back up the hype?
I think it was really that good because for one thing, and I'm not and some of the guys do now, but back then it was all the guys. Like they owned that club. They when they walked through the club, you knew which guys worked there. They owned it. And so the girls that went there all the time, it was it was that good. And they were again, it went back to they were your friends. We weren't just seeing guys on stage that we really didn't know. They were our actual friends because we talked to them all the time.
Hmm.
And so then the new girls coming in, like people that were just in there for like a bachelorette party or whatever, we were having so much fun that they would get into it and they, wouldn't be all uptight or whatever because they didn't know what was going on. It's just everybody was having fun. And there wasn't it seems like now there's a little bit of, when you go in there, can be a little bit of drama between the girls. There wasn't all that back then. Nobody cared who you tipped and who you were dancing with and whatever. And you didn't see all that.
Hmm. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the stage that you brought up. So obviously, initially you could sit by the stage, like you were saying, and that was prime time real estate. Now you can't. Obviously, our stage is open. And how do you feel like that changes the dynamic of main stage? Does it help it? Does it hurt it? What do you think? And you've
I
seen
think
over the years.
I think it does a little bit of both. In the fact that if you've got people sitting around the stage, obviously it's harder. I mean, they had spots where you could get to the stage, but obviously it makes it less room to get to the stage to tip guys if you're not one of the people sitting around the stage. And so that was kind of a drawback. But the I guess the good points of it was if you were one of the people sitting around the stage, then like I said, you really got to interact with the acts and you got to see them up close and personal. I mean, instead of somebody standing in front of you and you can't see what's going on.
Yeah, I personally, because I've worked clubs that do have seating around the stage, I personally like the fact that our main stage is open, just because of that fact that you can get a little more interaction. People that want to meet the person for the first time can go up there, versus when you have so many seats around the stage, they kind of may or may not have, or they have to wait till they get to side stage, and they may or may not still have the courage to approach them at that point. And it also kind of helps build up the excitement for stage. So let's talk about that a little bit. Actually, what was the like? Were women just losing their minds night after night then?
Well, that's the thing that the like we were talking about people picking up their phone and talking on their phone and stuff. And back then, I realized obviously you didn't have a phone to pick up, but the acts were so entertaining that you didn't care what else was going on. Yeah, you might stop and have a conversation with somebody or the girls you were with or whatever, but you were interested in what was going on in that act. Like I was saying, the guys that owned the club, you knew they worked there. They also owned certain acts, and you knew when they came out to do that act, everybody was going to stop and watch what they were doing.
Yeah. It's one of the benefits of guys that have been doing the business for a while. You kind of start to get this air about you, and you have that confidence level that just kind of sets you above, which is part of what people are there to see. So
Yeah.
to get a little more personal, what was your favorite routine at the time, and by who? And if it wasn't the same person that had your favorite routine, like what was it about that person that made them your favorite?
My favorite routine at that time was it was done by Terry Terranova. And
Yeah.
he did the when you take your hat off, but he did it completely different from what it's done now.
Oh, really?
He actually had there was actually a blind that they dropped down where they stood, where you go back behind to go like into the locker rooms from the stage. There was a blind dropped down there, and he stood behind the blind, and you could see his like silhouette. And he did it from behind the blind, and then came out.
Oh, that's super neat.
Yeah, it was really cool. And he was one of my favorite dancers at the time. So I did like his act because he was obviously one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But that was one of my favorite acts.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it kind of goes hand in hand. You end up liking someone because of their personality and stuff like that, and then that also somewhat controls or dictates the kind of shows they do. So one kind of leads to the other.
Right. And of course, the Top Gun was always one of my favorites. And at the time, Franco and a guy named Michael and Brady were doing it.
Okay. Yeah, and that one's obviously a classic. It's never gone. I did my fair share of it during my first couple of years, and so I started to make more and more of my own routines and stuff like that. So, one last question before I let you go. What do you feel are the two biggest differences from then and now, either positive or negative or both, that you've seen over the years in kind of the evolution of the industry?
I think one of the biggest differences, and again, is just the getting to know the guys. It's harder now to get to know the guys like on a more personal level. And like I said, back then you got to know them on a personal level, and it was just part of that atmosphere. And so I know you kind of want to protect your privacy, and you got to watch that, but also it makes you want to come in there more if you know the guys a little bit better. Like for me, I'm kind of shy, so if I know the guys a little bit better, then I'm more willing to get up and tip or talk to them or whatever. Some girls, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's one big difference I've seen.
Okay. And what's the second one if you got one?
I think, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about the guys owned that. You knew when they walked in that they worked there. You could just tell by their body, their demeanor, their confidence level. And I don't know whether the guys don't stay long enough now to get to that level, or you just don't see that a lot where they walk in and you're like, oh, I can tell this guy works here. I mean, you can with a few, but it's really hard with like even with the younger group. And so that's
like, can you be a little more specific? Like some of the things that kind of differentiate, like what someone that owns the place might kind of give off, and as well as the people that you can tell they're insecure still or not comfortable in their own skin.
Like when they dance and stuff, the guys that own it, as I say, they you can tell they're comfortable in their dance. Like if for example, if I can use another name, when Damien used to dance, nobody danced like him. And so he was comfortable in what he did. And so when he did his acts, you could tell he kind of owned them, as I said, because he was comfortable in what he was doing. He could do it. He could almost do it with his eyes closed. Whereas some of the guys, like, and again, not to use any names so I don't downgrade any of the guys, but some of the newer guys, you can tell they're kind of uncomfortable when they dance. You just can see it. And so they're up there, they're trying, which I understand totally, because I would be totally uncomfortable if I was trying to dance like that. But you can just see it and I don't know if they haven't had enough practice yet or what, but, and like I said, I don't know if they don't stay long enough to get to that point or what it is, but it's just more, like they can do it more natural.
Yeah, and some of that comes with time. Time like doing the job, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think unless you were straight up a performer or a professional dancer, like nothing's gonna prepare you for going out in front of a ton of women and kind of bearing it all, you know?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think the guys now, the younger crowd stays long enough to get to that point. It's almost like it's not really a revolving door, but they don't stay that long in the business anymore. Mm-hmm. Those guys stayed forever in that business.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So, like, what kind of longevity did you see from the dancers initially to dancers now?
Well, that's the thing. They were, I mean, when we started going, the same guys that were there until the time of Angelo's passing. So that was what, 8 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
So that they were there that long. I mean, they were there until they either got married or had a kid or something, but they were there for many, many years. And so, whereas now I know I'll see guys go, kind of in and out, where you'll be like, oh, where'd so-and-so go? Oh, they're not here anymore. Well, they were only here a couple of months, but back then they stayed for a long time, and they got that familiarity, and they got that confidence level up, and they worked with each other to get that confidence level up, like learning the dances and stuff.
All right, welcome back. That was a trip down memory lane, the history of LaBare as viewed by a couple of the fans that have been coming through generations. So I hope you really enjoyed it. Like I said earlier in the beginning, I really enjoyed doing it. It was fun to get some insight and kind of joke around with people and just let the world know that we do make friends and have lasting relationships here and stuff like that. So it's a lot more and can be kind of what you want it to be. And the fact that as entertainers, we have to stay up with the times and kind of evolve with society as it goes. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it on your drive to work or where you're cooking, you're doing laundry, or whatever it is you do when you're listening to the show. Social media. You can catch me on Facebook at Cesar Collazo, COLLAZO, or on Instagram and Twitter at Cesar LaBare 7. So yeah, once again, leave any comments below where you listen to this or on my social media. Feel free to message me. Let me know what you thought about a show like this. And if you have some other possible insight, I might do a part 2 to this show if people really liked it, and try to track down some other people that have been coming for multiple generations of entertainers and stuff like that. Cool. Well, without a doubt, thank you so much. And until next time, keep bringing the rain.
I am focused, I'm in my zone. You can binge watch like Game of Thrones. Reserve your judgments, don't throw no stones. Oozing ice cream as loud as you go. Airplane mode on tablets and phones. Cesar's Crowd Pleasers is now on. Cesar, the Crowd Pleaser. If you need to pick me up, ladies, we gon' change your demeanor. Cesar, the Crowd Pleaser. We gon' do a little dance, we gon' make the naysayers believe us.